of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers or Rogers TV.
Welcome this evening to Truck Stop. My name is Beata, your co-host tonight, and David, our co-host. Now, David, today's topic is about safety, specifically rules and regulations in regards to trailers. Now, you've been in the industry for quite some time now, so why don't you give us a little bit of your tips on rules and regulations regarding maintenance?
We're going to talk about the drivers on the road. The drivers take on a large responsibility when they go out on the road, and they're driving such a large vehicle that taking into consideration the size of the vehicle and the consequences behind it. These drivers go out on the road and they have to be safe. They're driving into traffic. They have drivers that surround them, and without any experience, car drivers, small vehicles, and they got to be very careful. They got to be look and make sure that everything is perfect. We have tankers on the road that have that pull flammable material and corrosive material, propane, stuff like that. They all have placard on them on each side. So we want to educate the small vehicle drivers out there that to look for these signs and don't follow these vehicles too closely, and give them ample time to stop and stuff like that. And we have Mr. Martin Cohen, Cowie, who is
He's our consultant for the transportation industry. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming in. Now, you have a long history in the transportation industry, correct?
Yes, I do. I've had my license for over 32 years. I've driven more in the USA than Canada. I got into truck driver training. I became a team leader after about 6 months to 7 other instructors. I moved my way up to actually running the second school after about a year in that. I went into safety compliance because I noticed most companies were calling up the truck driver training schools and asking us about hours of service and pre-trips and stuff like that. And then I became an instructor at a college out by Caddy. Was there for a while, got into a very large company at safety compliance, and then found myself consulting because every day I turned around, I'm learning more and more and more, right? Somewhere deep down inside, I think I should have been a lawyer, but you know.
So you must know Ontario legislation ins and outs for travel and for transportation, tractor trailers?
Yes, I know a great deal of it, but there's so much out there that you can't sit there and whip off every regulation there is, because there are hundreds.
Right.
And there's the side of the car, and there's also the commercial vehicle side of the regulations too.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you find, you started off, you said, in the United States with your transportation for the trucking. How do you find the regulations are different between U.S. and Canada?
Canada, I feel, is a little more lax. The United States, their FMCSR regulation book is like thicker than the Bible. And it's they're very strict with it down there. Up here, they give you a regulation. 9 times out of 10, us being Canadians, we run by those regulations. And yeah, they are a lot stricter down there. And on a monetary value too, fines down there are very heavy, so compared to up here.
And is the legislation national or provincial?
Down there, it's usually federal. And up here, it can be, well, here the federal, they make the suggestions, and each province picks it up and, dictates and then veers it off the way they feel would be best for their own province.
Now you're saying that the legislation was different due to the size of the tractor trailer?
No.
No, it wasn't? So
No.
trucks, so what about trucks and cars? What's the difference in there? when it
There's a
comes to
big difference
legislation?
there. When you get into like hours of service to keep an actual book, if your vehicle's over basically 4,500 kilograms, it weighs 4,500 kilograms, you have to basically start keeping a logbook. Unless you have a pickup truck, then there is a specific regulation that states that your pickup truck can be 6,000 kilograms. But yeah, you have to keep a log, and as David knows too, you have to keep a pre-trip going and stuff like that. Anything over 4,500 kilograms, basically. Yeah.
Now, for maintenance, is there a difference between a large truck versus a small truck in regards to the legislations in Ontario or in this case, it would be national.
Well, there is no regulation against it. They all take the same maintenance. If it's a large truck or a small truck, you have to do the same maintenance. You still have to check them through from bumper to bumper and make sure they're safe for the road.
Right. Martin, you were saying that there's a pre-trip inspection, correct? Is that looped into maintenance as well, like preventative
A
maintenance?
pre-trip inspection is the drivers will do that every day before they leave the employer facility to make sure the truck is safe for the road.
What would be encompassed in that?
Well, they check everything from the front bumper to the rear. They check all the levels. They check the tires. They check the airlines. They check the brakes for adjustments and stuff like that.
So that's a lot of responsibility for a driver.
Well, you have to be responsible to be on the road here because they're driving. They're taking a big responsibility when they go out on the road. They're driving a large rig like that, you know.
Now, we're talking about rules and regulations. Now, is there specific rules and regulations in regards to weather, inclement weather? Are truckers encouraged or at least legal to be on the road if there's, say, a specific weather condition? So if we have a warning for, say, high winds or strong rain, is there any type of legislation against that, or
there's
that
only
we should be
one.
concerned?
There's only one, and that is the long combination vehicles, which are those two 53-footers that you see the odd time going down the 401. If there is snow on the ground or it's snowing, they are told to get off the road, you know, basically to a safe haven, they call it.
Right.
As for trucks themselves, if you've got a really good manager and safety compliance person, they'll tell you, you know what, if you feel you shouldn't be on the road, get off the road. Because you may make it to your destination, you may be an hour late, but better to get off the road and make it to your destination by being an hour or two late than not make it at all. So.
No, you're right. We are sharing the roads. We're sharing the roads with small vehicles and large vehicles. So we all have to play our part, including large vehicles. So in this case, what important tips can you give to a new driver?
A new driver, go basically with your gut feeling. If you feel you should be off the road, get off the road. If you're tired, get off the road and take an hour nap. That's what the hours of service is actually put in there for you, that you can get off the road and take up to a 2-hour nap and actually extend your day by 2 hours. So we try to encourage the drivers to do that. And again, I know that the pressure's on from dispatchers and shippers and receivers, but you know, again, get off the road if you feel it's unsafe.
And what are some of the biggest mistakes new drivers make?
The biggest mistake is sometimes not filling out their logbook correctly,
Right.
not doing the pre-trip inspection sheet correctly. They'll do the pre-trip right, but they don't fill out the actual form correctly. And they're getting fines like $250 for not filling out your pre-trip inspection correctly, $400 for not filling out a logbook.
Oh, wow.
They can also put you out of service for 72 hours. It doesn't mean that they have to sit over there for 72 hours and look at the weigh scales, but they can put you out. You can leave, but still
Right.
not with the truck.
Now, are these fines both to the driver and to the company?
In the legislation, there's what it says is it can either be the company, the driver, or both. So, if you get a driver who's upsetting the scale house gentleman, he can actually give a fine to the company and to the driver. And then, basically, I suggest to all my clients go to court and fight every ticket. Always.
So the scales are, from my understanding, most major companies that use trucking have a scale that are on site, or is that something that's in a certain location to get weighed?
Okay, most scales are usually like you'll see them at the truck stops. It's called the CAT scales, which means that it's certified scale. The scales that we're talking about are put out by the MTO. They're on the side of the highways. There's where you're basically going to get your fine.
I was wondering about those. You drive by on the 401. I was always wondering. So how do you get the indication that a truck needs to go into these weigh scales?
Well, when you're traveling down the highway, and me being a truck driver, you'd look and you'd see this big sign that says, if lights flashing, pull in. So you would sit there and you would look at the lights and you'd go, please don't come on, please don't come on. And then if they came on, you had to go in.
Right.
And when you went in, you got weighed out. And then, then you start getting into the points on a CVOR and stuff like that. So if it comes up on the scale house computer, he may tell you to go around the back and park and show him all your paperwork and everything else that's related to the unit and the load.
And the people working there are from the Ministry of Transportation?
Yes, they are. Yes.
And they can issue fines as well?
Oh yeah, they issue fines. They can actually pull your plates if they want to.
Really?
Oh,
Right
yes.
then and there?
Right then and there. If your vehicle is basically unsafe and it's got a critical defect, they can pull your plates right there and have the truck towed off the property.
And they'd be stuck to walk home at that point?
Well, let's hope that the manager sends somebody down to pick them up, but yes.
That's good. Well, we were talking about the fact that we're sharing the road. So what are some suggestions you can have for drivers to be aware for our tractor trailer drivers?
Small vehicles, cars, so just try to understand that anything around a truck when going down the highway, he has multiple blind spots, multiple. He cannot see behind him for an average of about 350 feet. That's when he'll first see you. On the right-hand side and the left-hand side, you'll notice that a lot of trucks now are starting putting the moon mirrors on. And that way it gives them a little more sight on the right and left side. But if they're not there, boy, you're taking your life in your hands if you sit right beside a truck while going down the 401 and you're in his blind spot. Because he's going to look and look and look, and when he doesn't see you on the right, he's going to swerve over. And if you're there, you know, it may be his fault, but geez, I wouldn't want to see the end, whatever happens there, right?
Yeah, that definitely could be an issue. It's just a matter of mass. Large mass will definitely take over a small mass. Now, I have seen people in the past who, especially for inclement weather, will sit directly behind a tractor trailer claiming that it clears the road. I'm assuming that's a very dangerous situation to be doing.
Most people who drive behind a truck like that, what they're trying to do is they're trying to save a couple of dollars on gas. So you're right behind the truck and you're grabbing what's known as this wind draft, and they're basically sucking you right along. But the only thing is, it takes 1 second for you to look to the left and that truck driver hit his brakes and you're right behind him and you're hitting him. And the sad part is that the poor truck driver doesn't even know that you've hit him. And he continues on and you're wiping out heading off the highway. Eh?
That's quite dangerous.
So, yeah, it's very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. Definitely not. Especially in bad weather.
Especially not in bad weather, yes. Now, for maintenance, is there something more that we would do in snowy conditions?
Well, maintenance is in snowy conditions. You have to check your unit before you leave your facility to make sure your tires is good, to make sure your brakes is good, to make sure everything is good on the unit before you leave. Because these drivers, they take a tremendous responsibility when they're going out on the road. You know,
very aware of everyone's safety.
It's a very large vehicle, and you know, they take a lot of responsibility when they go out on the road. You know, and the complexity of this is that they could get into, at any given time, anything could happen. So they have to be safety conscious and know what's going on the road, you know. And even when they get into traffic, as I said before, they're surrounded by other drivers who is not as well trained, you know, like small vehicles. You know, so these drivers always have to be constantly aware of what's going on around them.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we'll bring that topic back up after this after we go to our sponsors. So, stay tuned. More coming up on Truck Stop. Welcome back to Truck Stop this evening. So once again, we're talking about rules and regulations. My name is Beata, and my co-host here is David. We have Martin here, a consultant from the Ministry of Transportation for the trucking industry. Consultant for the transportation industry, my apologies.
No problem.
So we were talking about rules and regulations. We talked about that would be Regulation 587 during the break there. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
The 587, Regulation 587 dictates that any vehicle, any truck or trailer that was manufactured after 1995, okay, is supposed to have some kind of brake indicator, whether it be what's known as the tattletale. For a lot of truck drivers are out there, they got what's known as the tattletale. So if the brake is out of adjustment, the little tattletale is outside the 2-inch gap. Okay, there's also another brake indicator, which is a round green indicator that pushes on the push rod. And if it goes past the 2 inches, basically it tells you. Now that is a regulation. Now, if they actually enforce that, there wouldn't be so many trucks put out of service because of brakes out of adjustment. Also, too, truck drivers should understand too that the brakes nowadays on trailers are self-adjusting. So if they do get pulled into a scale, and whenever I give my safety meetings, I always inform the truck drivers, push down on those brakes at least 5 or 6 times. We call it a 6-pack. Push down on the brakes 6 times. That